have a comment?
Miguel Acosta.
Just come up and sit down at the mic, please, and give us your name.
Good afternoon. My name is Miguel Acosta, local resident, co-director of Earth Care Poder Familiar, and I'm here for two reasons tonight. One, to congratulate the new board members and thank the continuing board members for your service. Mr. Chair, Madam President, and members of the board, I think you guys are a great team, and I've felt nothing but positiveness since the election. So I'm very grateful for you all, but especially for our community and for the community college. The other thing I wanted to share with you is that tomorrow our organization is signing a convenio, an MOU, with the Mexican Consulate for an Adult Education Center that we will be housing at our facilities on the south side. And it's important for two reasons. One is that we want to provide an opportunity for folks that want to continue their education, either basic literacy in Spanish all the way through high school diplomas and college degrees in Spanish. But the one that concerns us more directly here is increasing the pool of potential applicants to the community college. The area, the community that I work in is the most under-credentialed officially. In Santa Fe, there's a huge population out there that I think we can get on track, and this center will help us do that. So after we sign tomorrow, I'd like to come and speak with you all to see how we can partner on this. We've been working real closely with Mr. Marcos Maes, who does an amazing job. In fact, he got my wife registered as a student here last week. So she just texted me and said she finished her first homework assignment. So she's very excited coming back after raising some grandkids. But we want to multiply that by a few thousand. So starting tomorrow, sort of like the story of Jose Maria Martin, we will be planting, not 6 feet under, but we'll be planting seeds of encouragement to get more folks registered in degree or certificate programs here at the community college. Thank you very much, and thank you for all the work that you do.
Thank you, sir. Okay, item 6 on the agenda is the President's Report, Awards, and Presentations. So, Becky, if you'll help us with the Employee of the Month.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. The Employee of the Month for November 2019, the Pass It Forward Award goes to Andrea Mueller from the POM staff, who was nominated by Herman Garcia from the FEC. Did she give a statement or anything?
Yes, she did. I would like to thank Herman Garcia for the nomination and SFCC Governing Board for their continued support of staff appreciation and recognition. I am extremely grateful to work with so many wonderful and talented people here at SFCC. SFCC is my alma mater, where I graduated in 2004 with an associate's degree in architectural drafting and construction management. My degree from SFCC has served me well for over 15 years in the architectural and construction field, and I am proud to have returned to SFCC in 2016 to put my skills to work here. Additionally, I was honored to nominate Jessica Garcia, our Assistant Controller, for the Pass It Forward. She is always kind, helpful, and professional. Her skills are amazing and always appreciated. Above all, she is simply a wonderful human being, and I am grateful to be here to work with her at SFCC.
Thank you. And the WOW-gram for November goes to Terry Tuert in nursing, who was nominated by Vicky Niazzi, also from nursing. We have
nothing from them, but I do have something from Jessica Garcia.
Okay.
I want to thank Andrea for the Pass It Forward Award. It was a very sweet surprise. I truly enjoy collaborating and working with Andrea on the capital outlay projects and hiring committees. She is amazing at following the finance board budgets and processes, even though they can be very cumbersome. She always asks all the right questions and takes the time to learn the financial side. I am honored she chose me to receive the award because I take a lot of pride in my work and enjoy working in the finance department. They are a great team to be a part of, and I am proud to consider them my second family.
Thank you. Okay, so as we noted, Jessica has received the Pass It Forward Award for December 2019 and was nominated by Andrea. And the WOW-gram for December goes to Jose Humberto Navarez from the POM staff, and he was nominated by William Murray, also from the POM staff. Okay? And now on to my report. So we've had a really busy couple of months, and under accreditation, as we mentioned, we've had 3 peer reviewers on campus who conducted an AQUIP comprehensive quality review practice visit on January 13th and 14th. This allowed our staff and a couple of our board members to have a practice run in meeting with the accreditation team and to learn more about the criteria for accreditation that we are going to be evaluated according to. A team of 4 peer reviewers will conduct a series of meetings during our AQUIP site visit, which will be on February 17th through 18th, and this visit will determine our accreditation status for the next 10 years. Jill Carlson, the Director of Assessment and Accreditation, was appointed to the Higher Learning Commission's Institutional Actions Council. This council has approximately 140 representatives from HLC institutions, and it has the authority to act on substantive change cases. So Jill can't vote on any of our cases, but she has to recuse herself in those instances. But otherwise, it's quite an honor for Jill and for SFCC. Under strategic planning, we are continuing to implement the 2019-2020 plan. The feedback from the strategic planning session during the fall 2019 Professional Development Day has been compiled. We have hired Peter Winograd to continue gathering feedback and helping us develop the 2020-25 plan. He will be on campus shortly to start conducting meetings with a lot of different stakeholder groups to help us craft the next plan. So I'm really all the preliminary work has been really valuable and very thoughtful, so I'm really looking forward to how this will unravel. We expect to have a final draft of the 2020-2025 strategic plan for the governing board in June. Under student engagement and success, we had our fall 2019 commencement. We had 361 graduates, 417 awards, including 289 certificates. 45 students received more than one award. Our graduates ranged in age from 17 to 78. More than half self-identify as Latino Hispanic, and 8% identify as American Indian or Alaska Native. Several awards were given for the first time this year, including an AA degree in fine art, printmaking, and book arts, a certificate in computer hardware and software, and a certificate in patient care assistant. Cabinet Secretary of Workforce Solutions, Bill McCamley, provided the commencement address. Leslie Arena Quintana Ayala, 20 years old, was a commencement speaker. She's a Guatemalan native and received a certificate in early childhood development. She gave a great speech. The college congratulates all the students who maintained a 3.5 GPA and made the fall 2019 Dean's List. The Santa Fe Community College Emergency Medical Service Institute graduated 14 paramedic students on November 26th. The nursing pinning ceremony and the respiratory care graduation were held December 4th and 6th, respectively. Santa Fe Community College has rejoined HACU, which is the Hispanic Association of Colleges and Universities. The opening reception of the SFCC Art and Design Faculty and Staff Exhibition. During this time, 20 studios were also open, and student work was exhibited in the Fine Arts Center, providing an opportunity for the public to see the college's art course offerings, as well as to speak with student artists. And you can visit the online gallery of photos for that event. The poetry posts on campus have been updated by former Associate Professor Miriam Sagan, who created the installation. The poems by Jane Lynn with artwork by Julian Wong were curated by Elizabeth Jacobson, Santa Fe's Poet Laureate, who co-produced the 100,000 Poets for Change event held at the Ethel the Whale last year. The Adult Education Department is offering English as a second language, new student orientation beginning January 14th for classes starting on the 27th. The high school equivalency and GED preparation classes in Spanish and English begin January 21st. Continuing education is offering a trip to southern Italy with guides Dean Bernadette Jacobs, PhD, and former instructor Diane Tinter, and that will be in May. Eligible students may earn up to 3 credit hours. The library will host these faculty events in February. February 6th, the director of the dental program, Amna Nayar, and co-authors Min Kantrawitz and Victoria Reeder will present a panel discussion about their book, 3 Paths, 1 God, Traditional Scriptures and New Prayers, and the event will also include book sales and signing. On February 19th, the City of Santa Fe historian and associate professor Andrew Lovato will read from his new book, The Big Book of Blues Guitar, The History of the Greats and How to Play, and he will also play his guitar. Under faculty and staff, we held convocation on January 9th to kick off the new semester. Sessions and training included topics such as preventing sexual harassment, campus safety, behavior intervention, accreditation, FERPA, Canvas, as well as governance group and department meetings, and the adjunct faculty welcome dinner, which actually did get postponed, I think, because of the snow. But I do want to mention that the training sessions on sexual harassment and prevention and also campus safety are on a very regular schedule, and we are keeping track of who's going, and everyone will be going, and it's actually quite good. Yeah, so that is a big accomplishment for us. The Associate Professor of Teacher Education, S.J. Miller, has recently published 2 books about gender identity justice in schools and communities and about navigating trans and complex gender identities. The National Governors Association in the state of New Mexico invited Henry Mignereau, Executive Director of Plant and Operations, to attend the New Mexico Grid Modernization Retreat. This is an all-day meeting to explore strategies to implement New Mexico's Energy Transition Act. The Visual Arts Gallery hosted an opening reception by the faculty and the staff members of SFCC's School of Arts, Design, and Media, and that will close on January 30th. About 50 individuals' artwork is being presented there. The Creative Writing Program, the Library, and Student Services sponsored the faculty and staff holiday reading. Also, I want to mention that our own Ian Martinez and also Esteban Anaya, another of our student government officers, were both invited to attend the Governor's State of the State event, and they were both there, and I think hopefully learned a lot, and also some lessons in waiting and patience and all that good stuff. But it was an honor to be asked, and so they were featured in the governor's speech about the opportunity scholarship. Longtime adjunct nursing faculty member Linda Jean Smith passed away on December 7th. In addition to teaching, Linda worked for Presbyterian, where she often placed SFCC students. Under local and statewide bonds, we're still completing the work on the William C. Witter Fitness Center. The stucco has been completed, and construction documents for Phase 2 have been submitted. On the Automotive Technology Center, construction began in December. During the winter break, the loop road was closed for several days while sleeves were installed for the future utility connections. The site work continues to progress, and work on the footings has begun. The facility is still scheduled for completion in time for the fall 2020 semester. In the learning space in the main campus, we're still working on the dust collection for the woodworking studios. We're exploring various options because the project came in at more than twice over the budget for the project, so we're kind of back to the drawing board on that one. The welding lab upgrades, 50% of the construction documents were submitted December 20th. Construction is scheduled for summer of 2020. Under the parking lot improvements, a consultant for the work has been selected, and a kickoff meeting is being scheduled. Under the additional learning space and classroom improvements, work on the Health Science Center's bio wall began during spring break and is still ongoing. The ceramic studio renovation project has been put on hold, lack to adequate funding. We've been having some issues with a lot of our bids for our projects coming in at an average of about 50% over what the original budget was.
50?
So 50. Between 30 and some of them have been up to 100%. But Henry told me that the average has been about 50%. So I'm not exactly sure what's going on, but we're having to go back and retool some of our projects to get them in line with what our budget actually is. A consultant's been hired for the adult education office renovation project and a kickoff meeting. This is going to be really mostly about the interior flooring and the carpeting, which they have been asking for a very long time. Under the GOB projects, the best and final offers for renovating the plant operations and management office were over budget. We have agreed to increase the budget, and the construction is slated to begin in February. An architect and engineering contract was presented to the New Mexico Higher Education Department for approval on a roofing project, and that was approved, so construction is scheduled to begin in early spring. Under community engagement, continuing education will host an open house on January 23rd. The Santa Fe Community College Foundation treasurer, Stephen Gaber, was recognized by the Santa Fe Community Foundation for his dedication to building healthy and vital communities. Kids Campus has a vibrant new mobile responsive website. The 30th annual SFCC Holiday Arts and Crafts Fair featured more than 75 local artists and craftspeople and was well attended. Recent media coverage, the Greenhouse Grand Opening event received top billing in Santa Fe County's sustainability newsletter, and in an interview on the Richard Eads Show featuring the Greenhouse Grand Opening. I was featured in 20 Who Will Make News in 2020, which makes me kind of nervous because I don't know what that means. Yeah. So hopefully it's about all the good stuff that we're doing. And Associate Professor Andrew Lovato was interviewed on KTRC, the Richard Eads Show, KSWV, and on KSFR's Klein's Corner, and profiled in the Santa Fe Reporter story. Guess that's why they call it the Blues. El Dorado Living Magazine featured a profile on woodworking program alumnus Taz Bramlett. Under collective bargaining, the Labor Management Relations Board met on January 17th. Under administration, we've hired Donna Wright to serve as the acting director of human resources. Chief Information Officer Jeremy Lovato has taken a position with the New Mexico Department of Transportation, and Corey Bergen is serving as our active CIO. Lourdes Patricia Parks is now the Senior Administrative Assistant for the Adjunct Faculty Office, and college has 25 job openings posted online. We have upcoming events. Classes started yesterday. February 17th through 18th, we have our higher learning visit, and March 6th is the faculty staff in-service professional development day, and so the college is closed on that day. And I would like to add just one note about the Opportunity Scholarship, that there was, the New Mexican did cover a little bit about my remarks about that. And this, to remind everybody, is one of the governor's key pieces of legislation. So this is a proposal to cover tuition as a last dollar scholarship program. It would be for students who are graduating from New Mexico high schools, and then returning students age 24 on up to 78, I guess, will also be eligible for this. Community college students will be considered full-time who are taking 12 credit hours or more. One of the things that's kind of interesting about the scholarship too is that there will be an MOU that each college who agrees to participate in the program will be asked to sign, and in that MOU there will be a ban for that will prohibit us from raising tuition beyond a certain point each year. That hasn't been established yet. There's been talk 2 to 4%, 3 to 6%, something like that. And then there will also be a range of, I think, 12 supportive or wraparound services, and the plan right now is for colleges to select 3 from that menu of 12, And those would and we can also select something that we're currently doing, because there's not any additional funding for either implementing those services on a new basis or enhancing what we're currently doing. But these would be things like summer bridge programs, improving tutoring, a lot of things that probably most colleges, including Santa Fe Community College, are already doing. So we will be following this legislation very carefully to see how it goes. But this is just kind of an update so that everybody kind of knows what the current status is. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Have you had a question, George?
Yes, I do. Yes, Madam President, could you give us an update on Midtown campus and what's happening there?
Yes, that will be a very brief update. The city is still working to select a master planner, or perhaps more than one master planner. Once the city announces who their master planner or planners will be, then those master planners will be getting to work with all of the groups that have either submitted proposals or are in some of the proposal submissions, like Santa Fe Community College. So I have not been in any meetings since all the proposals were due at the end of October, but I keep hearing that they're getting closer. Their plan initially was to name the master developers in January, so that would mean they have, what, another week and a half?
Thank
That's
you.
what I know.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
So I want to go back to the College of what is it called? Affordability. Opportunity Act. And as far as the board's position on that, or the college's position, and it sounds like we don't have one, that you feel like we don't have one at this point, or?
Well, what I have been saying, and what I think, there are still some details that have not been fully ironed out. So all of the colleges have supported the Opportunity Scholarship in concept. We would like to know more about what some of the particular details would be. We have also all expressed certain concerns about groups of students that could be left out. So for example, returning students can't access a scholarship until they're 24. So if you're 22, you couldn't get it. I do think that it's a very positive approach in that DACA students would be covered under this scholarship, which is a really positive thing. But I know that there's our state has had a good year financially, but there's always a limit to what we can do, and I think that is driving a certain amount of the conversation. So I would be open to any kind of suggestion or guidance going forward on that, because we are asked about it a lot.
Right. Well, as we can see that the Legislative Finance Committee and the House Appropriations and Finance Committee members have concerns about this approach, and I think I sent you all the report that LFC did about this approach, and I think it does leave so many students behind, as well as one of the things the LFC report pointed out is that that the people who would benefit the most from the scholarship are middle income and upper income students who don't have Pell Grants. They don't qualify for Pell Grants, and so their tuition would be paid for 100%. Now, I want to see more support for our students and more help, but the tuition piece, if for people who are eligible for the lottery scholarship, is going to be very small. It just seems like that, and as the LFC report also pointed out, that tuition is not the biggest problem that a lot of students have. It's the other expenses that they have that keep them from participating fully in college and going to college. And I'd really like to see that money shift over to helping with more of those expenses, similar, but to the trust fund we have, what's that one called? Our big $1 million
College affordability?
college affordability fund, but you were just telling me the amount that comes out of that is so minuscule for students, about increasing that, because that money you can spend on other things that you need. So I'm really concerned about this and the impact it's going to have on the community college, as well as obviously some positive impact for students, but not in the way I think we would envision it.
Other comments, suggestions?
Yes.
George?
Well, I'm also concerned, as we all are, recognizing the need to increase in enrollment and really address the need of the 50 or 60% of the local graduates who are currently not going on to higher education. And that's a large number of people, students, young people growing up who don't have much preparation, at least in the immediately after high school, to prepare themselves for the rest of their lives. And I think that the Opportunity Scholarship, while it's certainly not perfect and it doesn't address all of the needs that we would like it to address, it certainly offers lots of possibilities, particularly to students who, some of those 50 to 60%, who at this point in time are not considering the possibility of college. And hopefully this would be a new initiative, which would be a hopeful initiative to encourage them to apply and enroll in college. The previous support from the state for financial aid, certainly in terms of the lottery scholarship, which was a brilliant idea when it was first introduced. Unfortunately, it is no longer covering 100%. In fact, now it's covering closer to 60% of the costs of tuition. And I think it's important for us to reach out into our community and tell students who are graduating from high school, college is a possibility for you, and this scholarship will offer you that opportunity. So I would very much like to see the board support in any way possible promotion and education to our community about the scholarship.
Mr. Chair?
Linda?
You know, I asked the president to look at the numbers when the lottery scholarship came out, which at that point was 100%. And as many of you know who have been here a while, we never got that many students when their tuition was going to be paid for 100%. And when we as a college offered them a bridge scholarship for that very first semester. So it concerns me that's not why people don't go to college when for when they're graduating from high school, they have an incredible opportunity with the lottery scholarship, and at least it's pretty decent. And that that we have got to help them with so many other expenses that keep them from being able to stay in college. I like the idea that it's only 12 hours for returning students. That's always been a problem, I thought, with the lottery scholarship, that it mandated 15 hours. And I think that that it needs so much more tweaking before it's really going to bring students to community colleges. When the lottery scholarship came out, you know what happened? Everybody went to 4 years, because the 4-year college, you got all your tuition paid, didn't matter if it was $300 an hour, it was all going to be paid for. And I know we need to do something. I'm just not sure the way this is structured that it's really going to help the students that we want, that need to come here.
Well, I'm certainly, my crystal ball is no better than yours. I don't know.
Mine is very good on this issue. Because the LFC hates it. But other than that.
Well, having reviewed over the course of the last 2 years, I have reviewed many of the College Promise programs around the country. And those programs, while they are quite varied, and none of them, they were all community college programs only, though none of them included the 4-year schools. But in terms of increasing enrollment, increasing retention, and increasing graduation, they have almost to a one accomplished those goals, certainly with variation. Some of them barely increasing enrollment, others having 10 and 15% increases in the first year. And I don't think that the Opportunity Scholarship is a perfect solution, because indeed, as you point out, tuition is only about 25% of the cost of attending college. But I think it would offer some hope in this case at this time for students. Again, there's 60% of students who are not now applying for college and believing that that's not an option for them. I think we could interest them in coming to college at this point.
No, the thing is, we can always speak for ourselves at the legislature. So we can say, I'm a member of the Santa Fe Community College Board. I am not speaking for the board, but I support or whatever this proposal.
I do have a question. If I remember from College Promise programs, some of the challenges are sustainability of the funds. And so that continues to be a question and a concern that I have with the Opportunity Scholarship. So, Becky, I know you said a lot of, or Madam President, learning all those Roberts rules still. You mentioned that they don't have all the particulars ironed out. Do they have a sustainability plan in place? And I haven't seen the LFC report, Linda, but it's probably there in my email.
There is a plan to create a fund. Right now, they've done a lot of scenarios, and they're working with a $35 million price. I think there's some concern that maybe that's not adequate. The proposal right now, at least in the draft that I saw, was to fund recent high school graduates for a maximum of 7 semesters, and returning adults, I think maybe for it's about the same, or it might have been 9 semesters. But anyway, it's to fund that, all through a bachelor's degree. So that I don't know that the projections we'll kind of have to see what the enrollment patterns are too. Because if what happens now is the same as it was with the lottery, there was a fairly significant shift in enrollment from 2-year to 4-year. Obviously, the tuition is considerably more expensive at the 4 years, and so there may, if the numbers were projected based upon students currently in community colleges and then some of those shift, then, I don't know if that's been factored in or not. So I do think that there's still a lot of conversations to be had about that.
Thank you.
But if I could add, currently the proposal is that for the Opportunity Scholarship, those $35 million or whatever are recurring dollars.
Okay.
And the Legislative Finance Committee, their proposal is only for 1 year.
Okay.
So there's a significant difference there.
Mr. Chair? And
Linda.
so the LFC proposal would raise the lottery scholarship up to 80% or so, down from the 60 up to 80%, and then put some money in the affordability fund and do a couple of other things with the money. And one of the reasons that they said it's only for 1 year is because there's this hesitation about committing to large amounts of recurring money when we're not sure we're going to have recurring money because of the boom-bust environment of oil and gas. Okay.
Other thoughts?
Madam President, I have a question. Do they do an analysis on this proposal of impacts or unintended consequences?
Yes, so there will be, when the bill is actually dropped, which I don't think has happened today. They talked about it. I think it'll be later on in the week, but there will be, we do a fiscal impact report that they'll ask a lot of people to do those. As far as the impact statewide that Pierre was asking about, I think that really only, LFC staff and some of the high-level fiscal analysts will be able to calculate what that impact will be statewide. We will be asked for an analysis of what we think the impact will be for Santa Fe Community College, and then our Independent Community College Association will also do one for what we think the impact will be for our group statewide, because it'll probably have different impacts on different colleges depending upon where you are. But yes, and so some of that analysis will be fiscal, and some of it will be, what we think it will do to our enrollment, what we, any kind of programs that we might need to start. But I think even all of those things, the ultimate impact is still a fiscal impact. If we have to ramp up programs to support students who are underprepared, there's certainly a financial element to that.
Other thoughts? Okay, well, thank you. This is not an agenda item, so we can't develop a board position, but, and by our next board meeting, the legislature will be adjourned. So, as Linda says, each of us can develop our own thoughts and positions on these, and as both Linda and George have done, attend the Legislative Finance Committee meetings and other meetings, and keep us updated on that. And I appreciate the documents that you've sent out, and you've kept us up to date on that. Okay, we should move on to the enrollment report. Ms. Ortiz-Gallegos.
Good evening. Good evening, Chair Sullivan,
Good evening.
members of the board, colleagues. I sit before you very excited. However, I think you all may be a little confused. In your packet, you received enrollment reports from last week that showed that we were 12% up compared to that time last year. And that was very true. It's true data. I wasn't lying. We were up 12%. What happened at that time was that there was a little bit of a glitch in our technology, and registration was on a halt for a certain period of time. And then all of a sudden, this week, which is the report that you have before you, there were 700 students added to last year's numbers. So therefore, this year, right now, January 23rd, it shows that we're down less than 1% of our overall enrollment. It's actually really good. And I'd like to share some information with you with what we've been doing to get our numbers to be so strong with where they're at. If I can share with you a little bit of history, which you may remember, and for our new members, 2017 to 2018, we were down about 4% around this time. 2018 to 2019, we were down about almost 8%. So this year, I'm feeling very confident with the numbers that we have and with the information that my colleagues are going to share with you that we're going to hold really strong with where we're at right now, if not have an increase. That's my prediction based off of where we're at and seeing the enrollments coming in on a daily basis. So we're really hopeful with that. To share with you a little bit about what we've been doing to get to where we're at, we've been doing a lot of outreach, which we call our late night calls. Our awesome OIT department has set up a great call center for us. And if any of you all would like to volunteer with us, please let us know. Give us your contact information. We'll give you a call and you can join right along the fun. But what we do is we outreach to students, and these are students who were enrolled for last fall semester and did enroll this spring semester, just sharing with them the registration opportunities and all the great things that are happening at SFCC. We've had some really great volunteers. Yes, volunteers who come in and share their time with us and just make these calls because that's what they do. They care. We're creating that culture of care. We also are not disenrolling students for non-payment, which is another great initiative that our colleagues from the finance department have worked with us and collaborated with us. But we're also reaching out to them. We're calling them, we're working with them, we're sharing with them about what the payment plans are looking like, financial assistance, informing them about scholarship opportunities, and so we're really trying to keep them as informed as possible. We're also opening with extended hours. So now we're open right at 8 o'clock and we're going all the way through 6 p.m. No lunch breaks. Our team is working diligently to make sure that they're working with their students, all the way from advisement to all of our student affairs with registrars and our business office is working with us on some extra hours as well. We're doing that for the first 2 weeks of the semester. We're also, because of our winter closure last week, Mother Nature blessed us with a little bit of moisture, and we had to close on Thursday and Friday. We saw that that was a barrier for our students. A lot of students who we were calling earlier in the week were saying, hey, I'm going to go in on Thursday or Friday. I'm going to sit down with an advisor, get my classes ready to go, and then we were closed. And so because of that, we collaborated with our academic deans, who we decided that we're going to extend the registration period for our students. So now, today was going to be the last day for students to register for classes. We have now extended that through Friday. So we're really hopeful that we'll be able to help more students who may only be able to come in on Fridays. We also held new student orientation, but we did it very differently this year. We had 2 sessions, one during the day and one in the evening. We had over 40 participants, which is a really big number compared to our numbers in previous times. We have traditional age students coming in and post-traditional students, and the whole program was really led by our students. Ian Martinez and his team through the Student Ambassadors and Student Government Association were here, and so we created more of a peer-to-peer type of orientation for our students. So we were really excited with that. All of these great efforts, and there's probably many more that I forgot to add to the list, really have helped us get to some strong numbers of where we're at. But it's not just about the numbers, and I want to make sure that I stress that to everyone. It's about cultivating that relationship with our students. We're being more open with our students, we're being more transparent with them, we're being more available with them, and we're really there to provide that one-to-one service with them. So with that, I'll pass it over to my colleagues who are going to share some more exciting news with you all.
Thank you, Thomasina. Chair Sullivan, President Rowley, members of the board, I'm going to talk a little bit about our progress with the CRM, constituent relationship management system, and I'm going to make it very brief. And I know that when anyone ever says that, that people say, oh man, we're in for it. So, but before I start, I'd just like to regale you with an exhilarating tale of frontier jurisprudence about a man named Jose Maria Martin. I'm available for lectures on that too. So our kind of motto is evolved into in the marketing and public relations recruitment is if you're not measuring, you're not marketing. And that sounds easy. It's actually in a big institution, it's fairly complex to get into that kind of model. And so you stalwart members have been along for the ride, and some of the newer members are about to learn a little bit about how sausage is made. But I promise I'm going to do this quick. So someone might be confronted with a form, something like this. Not a big deal, right? A name, last name, email, mobile phone. Pretty boilerplate. Well, let me show you some of the things we can now do with that information. This, we're going to call her Alejandra. This is a look into our new management system that we've implemented. With those basic pieces of information, here's now what we are kind of gleaning from these interactions. So basically, we're able to create what someone might consider a drip campaign or a kind of a flow of a relationship. So when we call it a constituent relationship management system, that's really a very jargony way of saying we are building a relationship with this person in a very deliberate, intentional way that instead of saying, if we build it, they will come, what we're saying is we want to learn about you, we want to cater to your interests, we want to connect you with the right people. But we need some information to do that. And so for Alejandra, what we have now, using various technology, is kind of a trail of breadcrumbs about what they are doing when they come and engage in a specific campaign. So in this case, Alejandra requested more information. She filled out a form. You can see it says form submitted. I'm not going to read each one of these, don't worry. What that does is it triggers a welcome email. Back to this. They have a kind of a choice, and it's every single decision triggers another outcome or another way that we can reach out to them in an individualized manner. So you requested information. Now it goes, this is an automated message now. So hello, Alejandra, thank you. We're ready. We personalized it with Marcos, kind of being our personification of all things good and true about the community college. And you can see here we have next steps. Well, the next thing we want them to do is probably schedule a tour. So let's see if she scheduled a tour. And hopefully, so what happens is, so down at the second to the very last, she scheduled a visit. And what's genius about a system like this is this becomes an automated system. They get points. Oh, you scheduled a visit, 10 points for you. So when we are doing this, oh, you did this other thing, 10 points for you. Good job. When we're dealing with hundreds and hundreds and thousands of people, this is the way you process them as individuals and cater to their specific interests, but still provide them with automated messaging. This is marketing. This is not just a flyer or I love newspaper, I'm from newspaper, but this is not a newspaper ad. This is targeted. And so then we also can just look at what her behavior was on our website. So now with this information, with this request for tour information, we can see, oh, okay, Alejandra's into health sciences. Great. You interested in that? That can trigger a new set of communications. We'll have an email or a text message ready. Hey, we see you're interested in this. Let me hook you up with Cahalan. He's the advisor in this area. And so you can kind of just go from there. But another piece of this is just so exciting is the actual measurements. I'm a big believer in the lead measures versus the lag measures. We can't necessarily control our enrollment rates. We can't control population. We can't control demographics. What we can control is small accomplishments that lead and contribute to these bigger numbers. And so this is our way of measuring that. We can say, okay, cool. 67% of the people actually open those emails, or maybe 12% of them scheduled a visit. Maybe that's good. Maybe that's not good. So we're in the very early phase of this and learning, from this. This is actually how we make informed decisions, because we can see now the efficacy of our efforts. And so then they come to college and get great jobs, and the end. But we are basically kind of in the early phase of all this, and I just wanted to share where the progress was headed. It's y'all have been along for this ride for a long time, and I'm glad to be able to share some actual content from the efforts. And so I'm going to pass it to Marcos. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Todd. Oh, actually, there's a question.
Could I ask a question? Indeed, do you have plans to follow the students after they graduate?
Well, thank you for that question, Vice Chair Gamble. In a perfect world, and where I would like to see this happen, and one of the pitches I made to the college was, let us pilot this way of thinking in our department. We're a good test case for this. But this is something that you could institutionalize through larger systems, where you follow these students through every step of the journey, and it's under one system. And this ties back into the discussion that we have about the ERP system, and why I believe that something like that is so important for the future of our institution, is so that we can have an aligned conversation about the journey of these students on many levels. But this is all woven deeply into data and reporting and into the ERP system. So it's something that I would like to see us get to.
Thank you very much, Todd. Chair Sullivan, members of the board, President Rowley. I'm going to throw a number at you right now. 60 cohort dual credit classes have been created this semester. That is yet another all-time dual credit record here at Santa Fe Community College. About half of those classes actually have been registered because, again, and this will be good for our new board members to know, we are reliant on our high school partners to get us our signed dual credit forms from the high school counselor. The students sign them and the parents sign them, and then they bring those forms, and they are stacks of forms over to us, and then my staff of 2 hand register each and every one of these students. So right now at this moment, we are well over 500 registered dual credit students for spring 2020. If you all recall, last semester was an all-time record of over 920 students enrolled. And again, we haven't even registered half of these cohort classes. So I think there are some big things to come, and possibly another historic dual credit run for this semester. Also wanted to point out a really cool relationship that we started with Meow Wolf about 3 years ago, where we have Meow Wolf employees actually coming to SFCC. They are taking classes at Santa Fe Community College. Some are taking classes for credit, some taking classes for audit, some are taking classes for continuing education. And for about the last 2.5 years, that number has been about 15 to 20 Meow Wolf employees taking advantage of the benefits. Meow Wolf pays for up to 2 college classes or 2 continuing education classes. So even if they're not doing classes for credit, they're still generating revenue for the college. This semester, we have over 50 Meow Wolf employees taking advantage. So again, word of mouth is spreading, and it's just a good example of the great staff, faculty, and the facilities in general, and that's why it just keeps continuing to build. And of course, we still have our Ticket to College workshops, and for our new board members, just to let you know, we are actually bringing some of the processes of the new student checklist to the high schools, Capitol High School, Santa Fe High School, the Academy, and Engage. And what we are doing at these high schools is we are actually bringing the AccuPlacer testing to these students, to the high school seniors. And not only that, in addition to that, we also are providing them with FAFSA workshops. So they are getting their testing and their FAFSA done right there at their high school, and just getting rid of 2 of the biggest barriers, or I shouldn't say barriers, but 2 of the more difficult processes in the actual new student checklist. So to date, we've had over 170 seniors just in Santa Fe, New Mexico, SFPS, take advantage of this. And so far, early on in this academic year, we've had over 40 seniors take advantage, and we've only done 2 visits, and we're going to be doing another one this coming Friday. Mr. Chair.
Let me catch my breath here. Are there questions?
Mr. Chair?
Linda?
So I see that we don't have any Pell Grant. Is that because people don't apply for Pell Grants in the spring, or what? Why
Thank-
don't we have any numbers on?
Thank you for that question, Chair Sullivan. Member now, Siegel. The reason why we don't have those numbers is because we're at the beginning of the semester, and so we have not awarded or distributed our federal financial aid, and that won't happen until after the third Friday of the semester. So by the next meeting, we should have more of that data available.
A question I had was when we met last month, the report at that time on the fall semester was that that we thought, or you all, Thomasina, thought that we were going to end the semester at 1.64% ahead of the game. And this, of course, is all about the current semester. So I was curious, did we meet that goal, or how did we come out?
Chair Sullivan, thank you for asking that question. We did come out ahead. The final number that we have, I believe, was right at the 1.6%, but I will get you those actual numbers. I didn't bring that data with me this afternoon.
Okay, but
But we did end up above where we were at last year.
we did end up above the line and
Yes, sir.
below the line.
Yes, sir. And if I'm not mistaken, and I think this is safe to share, we were, I believe, one of the only institutions to have that much of a gain in the state.
I have another question.
Linda?
How old are post-traditional students?
Technically, thank you for asking that question. Technically, post-traditional students are considered to be 24 and older.
Okay. And what are the points for? What do I get from my
What are the points for?
I don't know yet.
Let's work on it.
No. They sounded good. So the points will help us differentiate the high likelihood recruits from the less likely recruits. So if you have 50 points, you've done 5 things that show us, let's go get all the 50 points and let's call them. Or let's, at this point, so we can take specific actions. Or, you know what, you've been in here for 2 years and you have 0 points. We're gonna just probably not send you any more emails. So it's a way of quantifying their propensity to be a student.
Here.
Just a clarification question. So I'm really excited about the call center and the volunteering. And it may have been a joke, and I'm just wondering, you said they're working 8 to 6, no lunch. I just want to make sure they're getting a lunch. Got to take care of our people. We don't want to burn them out.
Thank you. Thank you for asking, Chair Sullivan. Member Quintana, yes, they are.
Thank you.
Most definitely. And
No, we don't.
oftentimes,
No lunches.
No, they do. And what I meant was that we don't shut down services during the noon hour. And so we are definitely open 8 to 6 p.m. In the evenings, we're having our call center. Many of those people who have worked throughout the day are also working in the evening, and they are provided a meal as well.
Thank you.
So we take care of our people. We want to keep them energized, a lot of sugar
Yeah.
to keep their spirits going.
We want them to be healthy and
Definitely.
happy.
Other questions on enrollment? If not, let's go to item 7, which is in tab B, under communications, and we'll start with the Faculty Senate report. I see Zuby in the audience.
Chair Sullivan, President Rowley, members of the board. This will be a very short report today, I think. So, first, I wanted to, since you will not be with us anymore at the next meeting, like to honor and thank Bernadette Jacobs for her service to the college. And since the door has already been opened, the judge also, his grandmother was friends with El Fuego Baca, one of my great heroes in southern New Mexico, who is famous from reserve. At our first meeting, we had our first meeting during convocation. Our next meeting will be on the 31st, a week from Friday. And the themes that came out, we did a short agenda and then opened the discussion to people talking about what we would like to accomplish as a Senate this semester, and we'll see how we do with it. But the ideas are academic leadership and really reasserting faculty within the academic leadership and concerns about staff as lead faculty and chairs and whether or not we can really work to that. We understand that there may be situations where that happens, but we think it should be limited and that we need to make sure that the role of faculty and especially full-time faculty in taking leadership roles in the running of departments and programs is fairly important. We also, in terms of accreditation, we've been doing a lot. We're really hoping that we move forward after this accreditation visit and move forward with a 5 or 10-year plan so that once we get our report back, that we can really take the lead and get regular report backs to make sure that as we're looking at any issues that may come up during accreditation or goals we have for the next accreditation, that we're making progress on that continuously throughout the period before our next visit, because we felt a lot of things within the last year or two, a lot of issues we were concerned about accreditation, we're resolving them fairly quickly, and we think that with a longer term strategic plan around that, we could have better results and be happy. We're a little bit concerned. I know that in the past we've expressed our concern about in policy review. It's been a practice of the board that policies in Section 1 do not go through the shared governance process. And within that is the shared governance policy, which many staff and faculty worked for a year and a half to develop the policy we have. And we'd like to make sure at least that one should go through a shared governance process so that we can give input as to what that might look like, because there are some things that I saw being changed that I know will be of primary concern to faculty. So I know our policy review subcommittee will be looking at that and giving suggestions, but we think that in the best interest of coming out with the best product, that all policy, even though the policies in Section 1 are board policies, that when all the stakeholders look at these policies, we come up with a better product than when we cut segments of the population out. And I think that should be a practice going forward, but certainly the shared governance policy is something we would like to see go through the shared governance process. Another goal of ours is to empower and engage the adjunct faculty more and giving them more opportunities for leadership and a lot more input into things that are going on within the campus. And also the onboarding process, both for new members of the full-time faculty, but also for adjunct faculty. I know a lot of adjunct faculty were concerned that when they came back, we didn't have our normal adjunct faculty dinner because of the weather last week. But when people came back, there was a whole brand new checklist for them to check off on before they signed their contract. And they had not seen that or had much input into that. And so there are concerns about that. And that is my report.
Questions? George?
I noticed, thank you for that report. I noticed in your notes there was a concern about advisement, and I wondered if you would elaborate on what that concern was.
So it was more a concern that we created a new, I think a generally good new practice of when faculty mark students absent, there are follow-up calls from advisors to talk to the student about why they missed class and things like that. Many of the members of the faculty are concerned that they may already have worked out and had conversations with that student, and so having a follow-up phone call with somebody who is less directly engaged with that student is something they're not comfortable with. Now that's not a universal across the board among all faculty, but many faculty are very concerned about that. I know that we've discovered that there is a way when we're checking the boxes, if you check once they're here, if you check twice they're absent, if you check 3 times they're late, but if you don't check at all, we're calling that an excused absence. So if I've had some communication with the student and I know why they're not coming and it's okay and I think that there's no problem there, we're now not checking the absent but just leaving the check blank so that we know that that student is okay and there shouldn't be a follow-up with them. So that's one way people have started to work on that, to deal with that situation.
Chair Sullivan, I think Thomasina could clarify kind of what those calls.
Thank you. Thank you, President Rowley. We're doing an attendance outreach. It's another early alert outreach effort that we have for our students. Again, the data shows that students who do not attend class do not perform as well academically. The data also shows that if they don't attend within your first couple of weeks, especially, they're not going to be as well academically prepared for the rest of the semester. This outreach effort can and does complement perhaps what faculty advisors do and faculty professors within the classrooms. It's another way of outreaching to the students, but it's also a checkup in a different way to where we've learned what some of the non-academic barriers can be for our students. And so through that, our efforts have then diverted into looking for other resources for the students that may not be directly related to the subject matter at hand, which of course our faculty members are the experts. We're working with the students on a more personal level, and while the faculty members have a wonderful relationship with the students within the classroom, we also cultivate that relationship, creating that culture of care outside of the classroom. So we're really complementing the hard efforts that our faculty are doing within the classroom.
So how do you find out, for example, about students who have missed a class, 1 class, 2 classes? How does that information get from the faculty member to you?
Thank you for asking. The institution has developed a wonderful attendance reporting process. It's the faculty's responsibility to identify the student if they have missed. That information is we create a report at the end of every week, so we'll call the subsequent week for the week prior. We keep that data. We've kept that data for the entire fall semester, and now we're starting to analyze that data. This was our first semester of doing this, and we are going to start doing a comparative analysis to see how those students did in comparison to the students who maybe did not have any absences. We'll just really start looking at the various variables and seeing how this is really working. So it really is driven by our faculty.
Thank you.
And just one more point, if I may, we follow up not only with the not only with the students, but with the faculty. And so we have an internal system where our academic advisors are very diligent in placing a note to indicate whether they spoke with the student or not, if there were some issues. And we're a little vague in the sense of what we put on there because many people have access to that. So if there were issues or concerns that we're dealing with, we will indicate that in our system. But it's also a program and a place where faculty have access to, so they can also go to that student's record and see what type of perhaps conversation took place between the professional advisor and the student. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions for Zuby? No, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Staff Senate report. Ms. Carlson.
Yes, Chair Sullivan, members of the board, Dr. Rowley. For the Staff Senate report, you can see we have quite a bit of minutes in your packet. First of all, we'd like to thank former Chair Siegel for her service and Dean Jacobs for her service. They've both been a great benefit to us in the past few years. We, as you can see, have worked with Dr. Rowley on Policy 436, which is the comp and class, to add the $2,000 stipend for staff who achieve a higher level degree. That's working its way through shared governance, and hopefully it will be getting to you all soon. But we certainly appreciate the support. That's been an equity issue for a number of years, and we're very happy to see that moving forward. Additionally, we've had many people coming in to give us updates on HR and the various things that are going on in HR. Particularly, we'd like to thank Yash, Nick, and Becky who have visited us to give us input on that. We've given input on the application process and how all that, the interview process works here. We are forming a committee to help advise on the compensation study, and we'll have names for the administration soon on that, and continue to work on those kinds of issues. And with that, I would stand for questions.
Questions on staff? George?
There was, I guess, I have a question about the planned, I've forgotten what it was referred to, but the planned discussion about Hispanic serving institutions.
Member Gamble, I believe they're the PDAC group, the President's Diversity Advisory Committee.
That's correct, yes.
Is planning some, trying to think, I talked to Shalimar today, some open discussions about what it means to us, because we are a Hispanic serving institution.
Right.
But we don't know that everybody's really internalized that and really understands what that might look like. And we think with some collaborative discussions that we might bring a greater understanding across the faculty and staff. So I'm kind of
Looks like
speaking
you
for
have-
PDAG, but there's Megan.
I'm co-chair for PDAC, and so I can speak to that event if I can interrupt.
Please.
Did I get it mostly right?
Yeah, you did. So thank you for this opportunity. I co-chair PDAC with Brooke Gondera, who's recently taken on a new role leading our kids campus. And this year with the President's Diversity Advisory Committee, we've really chosen to focus our work around Santa Fe Community College as a Hispanic serving institution and as a sanctuary campus. In 2016, the governing board issued a sanctuary school resolution. And as part of that resolution, several objectives were outlined that have never been fulfilled. So PDAC is now looking to organize around that resolution and use that to start shaping our work moving forward. So we have a PDAC retreat that will help us with our strategic plan that we have scheduled for the end of February. And we're hoping to host these fishbowl events because they really do foster wonderful civilized dialogue over the difficult subjects. And they really give our students an opportunity to come and interact with us in a way that's honest. So we want to encourage that, and we want to encourage that sort of atmosphere of dialogue because that's at the heart of education. So it's actually really exciting. And we are also working to support events in the library and the talents and the skills of the diverse people here at Santa Fe Community College, including Amina's new book, the work of Dr. S.J. Miller on gender equity, and Dr. Lovato and his book on the blues. All of those things really contribute to what this community is. So we're pretty excited about that work.
And just a fishbowl event. I hadn't
No,
seen
I
that
haven't attended
term.
one of these myself. It was something that has occurred before through partnership with the Office of Student Development and Ernest and the student ambassadors, and Shalimar also led this last event. And my understanding is the one that they conducted was sort of a group discussion, so sort of a panel discussion, but a panel discussion in the round, so that there are a set number of participants that lead the discussion, but everybody's encouraged to participate and share their own experiences and how it relates to the topic. And I think Santa Fe Community College really hasn't reckoned with what it means to be a Hispanic serving institution, but it's something that we need to really understand, especially with the Title V grant and our accreditation and our identity as a Hispanic serving institution. In order to walk the walk, we need to understand what we mean by that.
Right. Well, it certainly sounds like a wonderful idea, and I'm sure the board would love to either observe or get some feedback on how those fish bowls are going.
We'll send you invitations, and we'd love it if you came.
Great. Thank you very much.
Other questions? One that I had, before you leave, that's okay, you can, we'll see you later. Is on some discussion at the staff level about the 7 meta majors that we have now. And in 25 words or less, can you tell me how that's going? Are they all functional at this point or not?
Chair Sullivan, I'm really not the person to ask. We had Colleen Lynch come in and do a presentation so the staff understood them better. I can give you a little bit, but I think maybe
You're the right person to.
Margaret could answer that a little better than I could. I don't want to misspeak.
I believe they are almost all in place, not in being used, but they've been laid out in terms of what those look like for students. And I think they are just beginning, particularly looking at fall and putting those in place.
Okay, because
There's been a lot of planning on the front end to get those
There's-
organized.
a couple of years I've had concerns about scheduling, and
Right.
of course we bought new software, which I'm sure is wonderful, but I'm looking for to see when the rubber meets the road here. So we have them structured, but it won't be until fall that we actually move some students into a meta major.
Yes, that's my understanding, and we have identified leads for the various meta majors, the various pathways, as a part of our Title V grant that we'll be moving forward and working with a group of folks to get that organized and get us prepped to move forward. And it may be a good idea for us to look at an upcoming board meeting, whatever works with your schedules, to have a brief report on those meta majors again to give you an update.
Just so people know, the 7 are science and technology, health sciences, business, teacher education, arts and communication, social science, and professional studies, and trades and technology. Now, how do we know that there's a market for these? Do we have people signing up already? Do we have our marketing people involved, or how do you do this?
Well, we know there's a market because there's a market for the degrees and certificates that fall under those larger areas. And so students who express an interest in any of those kind of areas that fall under the larger umbrella, that's where they'll enter, that's where they'll begin, and then they will be able to explore within that larger umbrella and decide what specific degree or certificate they want to pursue.
And is one staff person in charge of this? Is that all Colleen's bailiwick, or how does that work?
So Colleen has been the lead with this, but we have lots of folks that have been involved in the creation of these, the discussions, and we'll have a lead for each of the various pathways.
And then are the advisors
Absolutely.
involved, trained, or how?
That's all a part of it, yes.
Somehow they're involved in.
Absolutely.
I have a question. Are these,
Here.
thank you, Mr. Chair. Are these meta majors, were they created like at the state level, or is it an institutional?
It's an institutional.
But each meta major is in line with what the transfer requirements would be for
Yes,
universities?
and not dissimilar from what other institutions have done. I mean, I think we've looked at what's going on at other institutions, but these are indeed our own, our own creation. Yeah. Sure.
So I'm a member of the curriculum committee, and the curriculum committee has spent a lot of time with faculty coming in and making presentations and then actually sequencing each of these, because that's a very important component of it, and looking at those sequences really minutely so that we know that they'll work, looking at courses that are common across a meta major so that students might have a path, including the potential for some developmental when that's necessary. So there've been many hours put in already with faculty and staff on curriculum committee.
Yeah, this is a major undertaking, but I think it's the guts of the future here, of where we're going in education at community college level. And what about scheduling? How does that, well, let me ask it differently. Does the software work?
So I assume the software you're talking about is our Ad Astra software.
Yeah.
And
You can
it
just say yes or
absolutely
no.
works. And
Oh,
it's not, it wasn't new. There was an upgrade to the software.
Right.
And it does absolutely work. We are using it. It is helping with the scheduling process indeed.
I always have some skepticisms about software.
I know you do. It doesn't solve all the problems, but it certainly
But it
helps.
seems to very often be a reason that delays are encountered. And anyway, okay. So meta majors will get an update prior to fall on that. Okay, thank you very much. Other questions on the staff Senate report? No? Let us hear an always
Thank you.
exciting, interesting, and revealing report from the Student Senate. Last time it was like 4 pages long. It was really blew us away.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, President Rowley, colleagues, welcome back. We survived winter break and we're back and we're ready to kick it and start another semester. I'd like to welcome our new members, Chair Sullivan, Vice Chair Gamble, Secretary Pugh, Board Member Siegel, and Board Member Quintana. And thank you guys for everything you do for SFCC. And I'd like to thank President Rowley for the opportunity to attend the State of the State address by the governor and have Esteban be announced in the speech. That was an amazing experience. I thought I would go on and watch the speech for about an hour and, it'd be fine, but there was a process to that. And it was actually an interesting process to see how they adopt the agenda, how they call roll. All the representatives need to get up and sign, that they're there. Whew, it takes a while. But that was an awesome experience, and thank you for that. So January 15th was new student orientation, and like Vice President or Associate Vice President Tomasino Ortiz Gallegos said, this was a peer-to-peer type of event. So we had a lot of student leaders help guide the students in, take students on tours, and that really establishes the relationship between our student leaders and our student body. So we had student ambassadors help welcome the students into SFCC. We handed out schedules of meeting times. We handed out brochures of our leadership programs. We handed out swag, and we answered some student questions. Departments were out on display, such as OIT giving orientations on Canvas, the library, and the counseling services, just to name a few. January 15th and 16th, student government had our training and retreat, where we discussed future planning and goal settings. Our goals for this semester were to fulfill the Student of the Month award that we are pursuing, to be more consistent with our campus center meetings, which are the first and third Wednesday of the month. And we are also starting a student government / student ambassador mystery cart, where the purpose of the mystery cart is on the day of our campus center meetings, student government or student ambassadors or both can take the mystery cart around to the different schools and make sure that students get their fair share in the campus center meeting, meaning say we have 75 hot dogs to give away and we're not getting that much traffic in the campus center. We can take the hot dogs to the various schools and take them to the different schools and let students know what's happening. This is also another form of outreach on how we can hear the voices and hear the concerns of the student body. But it's not only by student government, it's by our student ambassadors, our student leaders, and that's amazing. So we're very excited to start this new initiative. On January 20th and 21st, we had Welcome Week tables. Student government and student ambassadors, of course, helped work the information tables, and we handed out all of our information on our programs. We handed out about 2,000 pieces of fruit on the info tables, and student ambassadors delivered fruit to classrooms and continuing education into various departments. And we assisted helping students find their classrooms. Student government has an upcoming meeting on January 24th, where we are going to announce the Student of the Month. And we actually are collaborating with the Aquaponics and Hydroponics Club to supply a package of fresh produce to give to the Student of the Month, which was an awesome initiative on their part, and what an awesome opportunity it is for collaboration. We are also going to announce the new appointed Vice President and Treasurer, Melissa Garcia. We are going to give our report on the ASGA conference we attended in Los Angeles, California. And Associate Vice President Yash Morimoto is going to present the student satisfactory results to the student government. The Valentine's celebration is going to be on Thursday, February 13th, where the National Society of Leadership and Success will be having their fundraiser to help fundraise their induction. And we will be having a campus center meetings, handing out little cookies and little brownies for the student body as well. Spreading that spirit on campus. And as you all have in front of you is the Student of the Month award criteria that we drafted together. I know when I brought this to the governing board a couple months back, there was a request for a criteria, and we didn't really have a set criteria for this. So with some help from Associate Vice President Ortiz Gallegos, thank you so much helping us draft this up and making a really solid product for this new exciting award that we're creating. And with that, I will stand for any questions.
Remind us again what the Student of the Month receives for the recognition.
Okay, the Student of the Month will receive a Starbucks gift card. They will receive student government recognition. They will also receive governing board recognition, where they will be brought to the governing board so you guys can hear from the student. You guys don't hear enough from our wonderful students. We have awesome students. So they will get governing board recognition. They will also get a slide on the monitors around campus, a digital slide with their face. They will get a certificate, a professional acknowledgement certificate with signatures by the president, myself, Associate Vice President Ortiz Gallegos, and the SGA advisor, as well as a parking spot. Did I say that?
All right.
Okay.
Most
Yes.
important.
Yes. So it's a wonderful acknowledgement to help a student put something on their resume.
Sure is. Questions, student government? I guess you covered it all, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Good job. Moving along to item 8, which is our consent agenda. We have two sets of meetings, the joint meeting with the Foundation Board on December 4th, and our regular meeting also on December 4th. We also have the second reading of the 3 to 8 credit hour policy, which we discussed in the work session. And that there weren't any modifications that came up during the work session. So does anyone wish to remove any item from the consent agenda for discussion? Seeing none, we'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So, second.
Moved and seconded. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That motion carries. We'll move then on to item 10, which is action items. The first being approval of Santa Fe Community College financials. And we've lost our financial expert. No, there he is. We discussed this, by the way, in case anyone has forgotten, in the work session for over an hour today. Very comprehensive because it included 2 months' worth of financial reports. But go ahead, Nick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, board members. I'm going to wait for it to come up here on my computer, but in front of you, you do have the financial reports for both November and also December. And let me bring this up real quick. Sorry about this. As we discussed in the earlier meeting, at the end of November, I'll just briefly show the highlights of the November financial report. In November, everything is occurring as expected. We had a cash balance of $5.5 million at the end of November. In the prior year, we had $2.1 million. Year-to-year cash improvement of $3.4 million, which we've pretty much been seeing consistent in terms of a cash reserve fund improvement. Tuition and fees were down 7% in November, totaling $5 million, and that's a decrease of $369,000 to the prior fiscal year 19. Local mill levy appropriations in November was a total of $283,000, and that's up slightly by $32,000. State appropriation revenue was $4.7 million and has increased by 11%, or $479,000. Total ING revenues were up slightly by $140,000, and that's about 1%. In November, expenses were up by $709,000, up 5% compared to November last year. And if you look at compensation, it's up by 8%, up by a total dollar amount of $789,000 compared to the prior year. Everything in the November report pretty much is hitting our expectations in terms of budget and projections and budget to actual outcomes. So that's the November report on that. If there's any questions on November, I can move on to the December report.
I don't see any questions.
Okay. So moving on to December. In December, as we mentioned earlier, there's quite a bit of a variance that's noticeable in the financial report. And if you look on the management discussion and analysis page 1 under the financial summary, it's spelled out here where this year we had $6.5 million at the end of December. And in the prior year, we had $10.5 million. That's a pretty large change and a decrease in our operating cash account of $4 million. And under normal circumstances, this would be very alarming. But as we talked about earlier, due to the change in the election law passed last legislative session, essentially property tax bills that make up a large portion of our operating mill levy property tax revenue to the college, those bills have been delayed. This year they're due January 10th. In prior years they were due December 10th. And so what that's done is it's basically delayed people paying their bill till when it's due. And so that's the explanation for the enormous decrease in cash there that you see. In terms of tuition and fees revenue, they're down 3%, and so that's good news. And it's only decreased by $199,000. Local mill levy revenue was a total of $3.7 million at the end of December. And it was down by, when you compare local mill levy revenue, it was down $4.5 million to the prior year. State appropriation revenue ended up being $5.6 million and has increased 11%. And that's a $537,000 increase compared to last year. Instruction and general revenues in total were down due to the timing issue, and they were down $4.2 million. But we do expect, and I'm very certain that our revenues in that area of local mill levy revenue will catch up when we review the January financial report for 2020. If you look at expenses, expenses were up by 1.6 million, up 10%, and total $17 million compared to last December. And compensation is up by 8%, up by a total of $976,000, and has a total amount of $13 million compared to last year. And supplies, expense, equipment, utilities were up by 16%, and 16% is really $577,000 for a total of $4 million compared to last year. That's it, basically, in terms of a highlight review of the December financials. And with that, I can stand for any questions you might have.
Questions for Mr. Tez? Okay, I think we covered this pretty well in the work session.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. While you're there, let's talk about the January fixed asset disposal list. Your name is on the list.
Yeah, I'm going to invite.
We approve the financials first?
Oh, yeah.
We can if we want, or we can do them all at once. Motion to approve the financials?
So moved.
Second?
Motion and second. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you for the reminder. What's your name?
How quickly they forget.
All right. So should we proceed to the
Let's do it.
fixed asset disposal list, the lovely
This is,
list you love every year?
starts on E2029 and is 14 really interesting pages that you need to read, memorize, and destroy.
I bet you enjoyed reading all those.
And we did.
But this is an exciting kind of thing because for me, it's always like the kickoff to our audit activities. So in order to meet the state law requirements for preparing for the audit for this current year we're in, we start out by disposing things. And so there's a lot of rules associated with disposition of obsolete and worn out, unusable personal property of the college. And as you can see in that list, really the governing board has to approve this in order for us to meet our audit threshold and avoid audit findings. And so that's why we're bringing it to you today. Really, these things have to have a resale value of $5,000 or less, and they have to be worn out and unusable and obsolete so that it's no longer worth anything to the college. And really, that's what this list is. At the bottom of the page, you'll see that the total dollar amount of what the items were purchased for was about $3 million. And in terms of their current value after depreciation and basically the time that has gone on from the time we bought it, let's say back in 2007 for some items, they're really no longer useful to the college, so we want to dispose of them. A lot of these things are IT equipment, and the useful life on that is usually 5 years, probably less, but we account for them as having a useful life of 5 years or less. Like everything.
Mr. Chair? Question?
You don't have any question. Your question is going to be, what do we do with all of these, right?
Okay.
I knew that she was going to ask that question.
What we do when we dispose of these things, do you want to? Is we work with a contractor And we contract out with a, oh geez, what do you call them? An auctioneer, auction company that will take these items, and then basically they'll auction everything off.
Was that your question? No.
Yes. And every year we seem to have just more and more, it's like things
Tough.
just expire. And
Yeah, again, it's a lot of IT equipment.
Yeah.
And I know Corey's here, I think, and she could probably explain a little bit more about what we're doing with OIT equipment, but it does kind of go out of date rapidly. And it's a big institution. You know, everybody has a computer for the most part on campus, and so those things are really only good for 5 years. And I think we're buying those things every single year.
So I know that we used to keep all of this equipment in the room that had a dirt floor. So where do we keep it now before we're ready to ship it off to the auction house?
Thank you, board member. We actually keep it all in general services, so it piles up.
You have a big room?
General services isn't huge, but it's a large room. It does pile up by the end of the year. It's pretty big. So if you'll recall, we normally do this probably in March. We're trying to do it a little bit earlier because it's such a big list. So, sorry, we may have another list before the end of the year, depending on how many items are sitting for disposal at that time. But it's all sitting in general services until we get approval by the board and HED and the state auditor's office to dispose.
Okay, thank you.
Question, Jody?
What criteria do you use to identify these things?
So they have to be basically beyond their useful life. As far as the IT equipment, they have a schedule that they work off of. They've identified the useful life of their computers and their servers and all those kinds of things. And so they are really trying to stick to that schedule of renewal and replacement and, you know, bringing in the new computers, moving out the old computers. So Mason could talk to that. Mason's the one that manages that, but.
Yeah, just for our policy, we replace them every 5 years. So we're always intaking some and getting some out of the same year. Yeah.
If I could just add on to it, the state law does require us to account for items under 5,000 when we buy them. Anything over 5,000, we have to capitalize, so depreciate them over the life of the asset, really. And so that's how we keep track of them. We have a fixed asset inventory system, and we really enter everything in. The process is that, you know, of course, when we purchase these things, we buy them through the purchasing office, through POs and invoices, and when the items are delivered to our general services office, they tag these things. And so there's a pretty robust tagging system of this, and that's how we ultimately enter them into the fixed asset system and then track them over time. And then when in our system, when they're identified as not having any more value, we'll put this list together and bring it to you so you can study it.
So I take it just, the list gets spit out, and then you go around, collect the stuff and pile it in your office? Is that essentially throughout the year?
That's sort of the process.
Okay.
Just because an item is fully depreciated doesn't mean it's not useful anymore. So that's one thing to note. We have lots of things on campus that are fully depreciated, but they're still being used. And, you know, they're fully functional. And so as long as it's functional, we keep it. We don't dispose of it just because it's fully depreciated. So obviously with the IT equipment, they have a plan. What happens with equipment that goes to the colleges, for example, like health and science, if they've got an asset that they've determined is obsolete, they fill out a disposal form and they take that to general services and they work together to identify that asset, bring it over to general services, and get it on this list for you to approve. So there is a process. It's not just we collect everything that's fully depreciated. There's a process to identify whether something is useful or not. And so that's part of it.
Okay, just one more question, sorry, since I'm learning. So if something isn't useful to someone, but it might be useful to others, is there like a reappropriation process or something that other people could use it? Like I noticed there were bookshelves on here, other people needed those bookshelves, a reapplication kind of process?
We do, they do collect items back in kind of the POM General Services area that a department say no longer wishes to use those items. If they're fully functional still, they'll collect them back there and appropriate them to another area that needs that. A lot of these items have been damaged or they're not useful anymore. So it's probably a shelf that is no longer working as a shelf.
Okay.
That's on this list. But they do keep the items that are functional that they can use elsewhere in the college.
Okay.
The question I had was, what was the college doing with a 15-year-old X-ray machine?
She's coming.
Yes.
I mean, they used to use them to size kids' shoes, you know. I don't know if they still do that anymore.
President Rowley, Chair Sullivan, members of the board. That was a donation from Northern when we had our Rad Tech program. And it was, in the short time we had the Rad Tech program, that was really just a tool for exercise. I mean, they did not really use it. During that time, the equipment practice that went into the Rad Tech program actually occurred on digital current equipment that existed at Santa Fe Imaging. They had their labs over there at Santa Fe Imaging after 5 p.m., which worked really well. But they were using that equipment because Northern didn't need it anymore, and at the time our director wanted to just be able to let the students have the experience of knowing what it was and how it worked. So now that we don't have the Rad Tech program, we have no use for it.
Let's explain what Rad Tech means.
Oh, radiologic technology?
So it was more or less a visual asset, not a functional one, is that?
Yes, sir.
Positioning.
Okay, thank you. Didn't know what they were going to use the X-ray machine for. Other questions on the fixed asset disposal list? Really an exciting part of the meeting here. Hearing none, we'll entertain a motion.
So moved?
Motion for approval
Second?
and a second. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. That was really a good report. Let's move on then to approval of the POM renovations construction agreement. And let's start off by explaining what POM means.
Welcome, new members, Chairman, Co-Chair, President Rowley. Thank you for this opportunity to speak before you this evening. POM was an acronym for Plant and Operations Management. As you refer in the financial report, there was a plant fund. Well, POM uses that fund to conduct its operations on a regular daily basis. Then just recently, President Rowley has announced, the college and our operations in plant and operations management is really more than just plant. It encompasses the entire campus, which includes all the facilities. So Dr. Rowley and I and Nick decided that we would change our title, as most of colleges in the United States have changed, particularly in New Mexico as well. And our new name will be Facilities and Operations. But it is inclusive of all plant and operations management activities.
So it was POM and now it's
So it was POM and now it's F&O,
FNO.
facilities and operations. So it's all facilities.
That would be FAO.
Yeah, it could be FAO, yes.
Like FAO Schwartz.
Like FAO
Yeah.
Schwartz, right?
And that's atypical of current institutions now. They're facilities and operations, facility services. They're more general as opposed to just plant.
Okay, let's
Thank you.
proceed.
Okay, on to the contract for the plant and operations, or the new name, facilities and operations area.
Mr. Chair, Madam President, and board members, this contract was done through the RFP process. We went out to RFP and received 4 responses. The responses were significantly over our budget, and we had to go out again, redo the scope, and ask for a second round of requests on the gutted scope that we worked on with POM at the time, but now facilities. And at that time, we did narrow it down to 2 finalists, and the responses were still significantly over our budget, and we asked for a best and final offer from our 2 top finalists, which again was still over our budget. And as explained, we did find other resources and money to allocate toward this project, which will cover the chosen response, and that is what you are looking at in terms of the contract in front of you. The board agenda item has a summary of the scope and the square footage and kind of a review of what's in the contract. What's not in your board package was the entire RFP, the 7 addendums, due to the fact that it would double the size of your packet, but those are available online and in our office. What you do have in front of you is the AIA document, the basic architectural contract that was drawn up by our architect. The drawing set is also available from the architect. So, I am the Director of Procurement, John Apodaca, and we have recently hired a new purchasing agent, Timothy Doyle. We had been down to 1 and had a temp, but now there are 2 of us. So between the 2 of us, we do operate about 1,300 POs a year and about 100 to 150 a month. So it is quite the load, with all the money coming in and what we're managing. So that's kind of a...
John also does serve as the college's chief procurement officer, which is required by state law.
And just to continue on John's comments with regards to the facilities and operations renovation, just to give you a frame of reference, as Dr. Rowley pointed out earlier, we're seeing a lot of our projects coming in over budget. It has a number of attributes as to why they're coming in over budget. Probably the largest one is there's a significant amount of capital the state has recently appropriated, both last year and this year. And that capital is going out to our contractors, and they're quite busy, so they're selecting which projects they want to pursue. And those that they don't, they just overestimate them, and if they get them, they get them. If they don't, they don't. They're quite busy right now. With regards to this renovation, we had intended to do a full renovation of our area. None of our offices have windows, so it's kind of nice to be able to look out a window once in a while and get some fresh light. Unfortunately, the budget was rescoped, and we'll still not have any windows after this renovation. We were going to move some walls and add windows, but we had to cut that out of our budget. The budget came in at about $700,000 for construction, and we've narrowed it down now to $450,000. We had $400,000 in the budget estimate, and so we've acquired additional $40,000 to just complete this reduced scope renovation.
Mr. Chair?
With that, we'll stand with any questions on this particular
Linda.
contract.
So you're saying that this is not about increased construction costs, cost of steel, cost of other supplies, but it's more about companies just making more money and...
It's really about the workload of the construction contractors and architect engineering firms. They're just inundated with work right now, and they're very selective on their projects. Some of it's attributed to cost of materials, but majority of it is attributed to the workload demand. Oh, between Los Alamos, Facebook, Sandia, we're Intel, we're just small potatoes, literally. There's almost $4 billion in Los Alamos out for contract, and we're having $500 to $1 million contracts. That's just small potatoes.
So I can't believe I'm saying this, but there's no way to go out of state or anything?
You would find it very difficult to have an out-of-state contractor come for a $500,000 to $1 million project.
Small.
And to mobilize here would take their
They wouldn't be able to hire any employees.
No, and our motto has been, and state higher education's motto is to try and hire state.
Oh, I know. I've been on this board for years saying hire locally.
Yeah, so we've pursued that to the full extent. But, some of the larger projects, like perhaps our paving contract, or our paving project, which we're going to discuss next, we tried to select vendors both in-state and out. We got no bids out of state.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I had a couple of technical suggestions or questions. In the front part of the document, your scope, and I'm looking at page E47 in the book. You have liquidated damages as $500, and I'm assuming that's per day, but it doesn't say so in the contract.
Yes, in this contract, it doesn't, but in the explanation in the additional document, the A201 document, I think there's a description of liquidated damages, the second half of.
Second half? Okay.
In there's definitions for each one of those terms.
Yeah.
And equally, I did speak with our legal counsel, and talking in regards to liquidated damages, it's very difficult to collect them, and most contracts don't even include them. So us putting them in is kind of against the norm, so.
Well, I'd have to disagree with your legal counsel about that. Most architectural and engineering contracts in public projects, and in fact, the procurement code requires that there be liquidated damages in those contracts. It is true that how you determine the amount is very difficult because they're not penalties, but they're incentives to complete the job on time. DOT has a set of a chart of liquidated damages depending on the size of the project, which is probably a good guideline to follow. So much for up to 500,000, 500 to a million, and million to 2 million, and so forth, a certain dollar amount. And the typical DOT projects will run, $5,000 maybe as liquidated damages, and they're serious about it, and they get the damages if the contractor doesn't complete on time. So I just wanted to clarify that was per day. Another question that I had was, and I asked about this before on a previous contract, on page E51 of the scope, we talk about the insurance and bonds, and it's also discussed in the main 201 document, but in neither place does it say the amount of insurance that we're requesting. I'm looking at paragraph 8.5.1. So how much insurance are we requiring?
So, thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. And in our actual RFP document, there is a breakdown of specifics, which is part of the contract as a cited reference. So in Exhibit E in the actual publicized RFP document, it shows the breakdown, the requirements for our insurance.
Okay, so you've incorporated the RFP into the contract, and somewhere in the RFP, you tell the bidders how much insurance you're requesting.
Exhibit E in the actual RFP document.
Okay, so that's covered somewhere. Okay, and then the last question, and maybe this was covered in the RFP too, that I had was on page E67 under warranty. And that's paragraph 351. It talks about the contractor warranting the project, but it doesn't say for how long.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. And in the response documents, which are also part of this, we do ask for explanation of warranty, and based on construction contracts, it's usually a year. It's 1 year for labor, and then any extended warranties where materials used, it's mostly the manufacturer's warranties.
Well, I agree, it usually is, but where is it in this contract?
It's part of the response document from the contractor in their response. I don't know exactly what page in their response it is, but.
And this is something that you also include as an addendum. You might look into, just as a suggestion, and discuss with a contracts attorney, the value of including RFPs in the actual contract. That is a little scary to me for this reason. The worst thing you can have in contracts is language that's different. And very often, a staff person will write an RFP and say, we would like this, we would like that, we would like that. But the actual AIA contract doesn't say that, or it says it differently. And so we now have, if there's a dispute, two versions of the fact, and the contractor says, this is what I bid on, and we have other language in the AIA agreement. So again, my engineering experience over the years and contracting experience has been that it's not advisable to include the RFPs in the contracts. You take that additional language that you need specific to your projects, and you put it in the scope of work, the front part of what you've done here. But to throw everything in as an addendum and as an exhibit just multiplies the chance that there's conflicting language, and that's what legal people love is to have conflicting language when you, and it's not a problem, of course, when you have a successful project. It's only when the project goes sour that everybody starts to read the specifications in the contract. So those are three comments that I had. I think that I'm glad to see, and I would mention that when I first came on the board, some of the construction contracts that were coming through, I don't know where they came from, that they were extracted somehow from AIA contracts, and which presents a problem in and of itself, since these are copyrighted. We're looking a lot better on our contracts here. We're getting, I think, a lot cleaner. I would just caution against throwing too much stuff into the barrel, keeping it clean. Okay, so we have this contract, that's my comments, for renovations. If there are no further questions, do we have a motion?
So moved?
Motion for approval?
So moved?
Second?
Second by the former chair. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, we'll move on to parking lot upgrades and improvements. Everyone's favorite.
Chairman, Vice Chair, members of the board, President Rowley, thank you again for allowing us to present this project. My name is Henry Mignardo. I'm the executive. I'm in a transition as well. I'm currently the executive director of Plant and Operations Management, soon to be associate vice president of facilities and operations. So I'm changing our department name and also changing my title. To my right is Ms. Karen Pittman. She's our director of procurement, and of course you all know Nick Tejas. He's our vice president of finance.
I will say right away that this program does not include redoing the fitness center parking lot, right?
Actually, it is, and
Doesn't look like it on the drawing. But
I'll give you a brief
okay,
explanation
go ahead.
as we go through.
I was going to harangue you about that right away, but
So yeah, I'll go through the forms. for you all. Just for your information, these are the same forms. These are template forms that we were provided by our State of Higher Education Department. These are the same forms that we will be presenting to the state on March 10th. The state will not hear projects during February because of the legislative session. So we will submit these forms by February 10th, and we will be heard at the State Higher Ed Department March 11th. So we'll start with page 1. The project title is Santa Fe Community College parking lot upgrades and improvements. And I'll go briefly through this project. As Chairman Sullivan mentioned, parking lots aren't the most exciting subject. However, it depends who you ask. I find them very exciting. The project itself, just for all intents and purposes, our parking lots have had minimal upgrades over the years. We've basically just maintained them. So this will be the first full-blown, in some cases, resurfacing and crack filling, resurfacing, and recoding our parking lots. So there'll be a full renovation. Let's see. Let me get out my cheaters here. At my age now, I have to use cheaters to see things. Description of work, an appropriation and local bond was provided to plan, design, construct, purchase, and install campus-wide infrastructure. This project includes 3 phases. An engineering consultant as well as a construction and paving contractor will be helping us on this project. It will include engineering. We'll have an evaluation study. We'll evaluate all of our parking lots for condition and upgrade repair requirements, and that will be done by an engineering team. Based on that that evaluation study, we'll provide design and construction documents for a vendor to come in and renovate our lots. And we'll also, as included in this project, we'll get a maintenance schedule provided by the engineering team that will provide us information on how to upkeep and maintain these parking lots for the future. And then, of course, we'll get into construction on these lots. After we get through with all of our engineering studies and design documents. Some of the lots will require a hot poured crack sealant treatment and a seal coat. That's the most minor treatment of upgrading our lots. Those lots that are in much worse condition will have to be evaluated for patching or, in fact, removal and replacement of the existing pavement. I can go into more detail on the project description. There, under the design construction documents, you will see the various lots that are included. They will be the main parking lot, which most likely will need a total resurfacing. The west wing parking lot, which we have already done crack and surface maintenance, so that one will probably need just a new sealant. The health and sciences parking lot, general food services delivery area, the William C. Witter Fitness Education Center, as Chair Solomon was commenting, and also the facilities and operations parking lot. So all those lots will be included in the evaluation and in the upgrade process.
Including the kids' campus?
No, the kids' campus is in good condition, and we will not be resurfacing the kids' campus. It will be included in the evaluation study, but we will not be doing any construction unless further information is brought in the geotech studies and research of that lot needing upgrades, but it's in fairly good condition. I'm going to jump now to page 7, the financial information, the project budget. We have included general construction costs, which are $1,451,807. We're also including a architectural engineering work. That's $114,499. We'll also have included a construction contingency of $161,312. And we also have a gross receipts tax, which is $272,382. So the total project budget is estimated at $2 million. $2 million will be funding sources provided by the GOB 2018 capital outlay funds and also our local general obligation bond 2019. So the GOB 2018 will be $1 million, and the local general obligation bond 2019 will also provide $1 million for a total project cost of $2 million. That's a state JUBI, excuse me. So we have the state JUBI for $1 million and the local bond for $1 million, for a total of $2 million. There's all the maps attached identifying the parking lots. We have all the technical information provided by our consultants as to their evaluation study and how we're going to resurface those lots. Any details on materials and the processes are also attached in that handout. I won't go through that. As I mentioned earlier, based on approval of this project through your body, we will submit to higher education February 10th, and we'll be heard on March 11th. And as I mentioned, higher education does not meet this year on February for the legislative session. And with that, we'll stand with any questions.
Questions for Henry?
Chair.
Siegel.
So how are we going to accommodate parking and our students so that, I mean, are we going to do this section by section? Starting when and?
Yes, thank you for that question, Chairman, members of the board, and Member Siegel. That's the most difficult part of this project, believe it or not. Yes, we've talked intensely with our consultants. We're going to phase these renovations. We hope to have the evaluation study completed by May, and we hope to start construction by June. And that's after classes have completed. So we'll do the majority, probably the majority of the main lot through the summer months. And then we'll take the smaller lots and do those in the fall. But we'll stage these and phase them so we can provide parking in other areas during the summer months.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions?
Chairman?
Judy.
So I saw on there you were doing a facility conditions index or inventory. Is that of all the facilities on campus?
Chairman, members of the board, member Ms. Pugh, actually we'll be doing a facility condition index of the parking lots through the evaluation study. We will be doing a full master plan study, which I brought you a copy. We'll be doing a master plan study probably, we're looking at vendors now. We'll probably start that study first part of next year to complete it in 2021. And that will have a facility condition index for the entire facilities complex on SFCC campus. Thank you.
Questions? One last question I had is, will you be looking at pavement recycling? That seems to be a very economical and satisfactory way of dealing, particularly with dealing disposable of existing pavement, which is a lot more difficult these days.
Absolutely, thank you, Chairman and members of the board. Yes, we are, and we have a number of green initiatives, and I'll pass this to our Director of Project Management to give you some insight.
Excuse me.
We, Chair Sullivan and members of the board, President Rowley, we met yesterday at the kickoff meeting with our consultant, and we'll be having subsequent meetings, and we want to do whatever we can to incorporate green initiatives into this project. So that is one of the things that we listed in our application to HED, and we talked about, well, that was one of the main things we talked about. I can't read it from here. So yeah, any byproducts that we can in the process. There may be sidewalks that get relocated or any other parts of this project. We'll look at that, anything we can do in that way. And our consultants are on board, with doing that. So it's just starting. There's lots of opportunities to discuss how we do it all.
I wasn't thinking so much of taking things away and reusing them somewhere else, but I think what a lot of parking lot experience has been now is that one of the biggest problems with parking lots is that they're under-designed and they don't have enough sub-base or base course. They don't have enough asphalt, and they get overused and they start to crack and freeze and thaw and break up. If you go through and grind up the asphalt that's there, that makes a very good base for the parking lot, and that adds typically 2 to 3 inches of base to the parking lot. And then you put some asphalt on top of that, 1.5 inches maybe or so, 2 inches, and you have a really good structural section of your parking lot. And so I'm just curious if that's one of the things that your consultant will be taking a look at.
We can certainly discuss that with them, and we're at the very, very beginning stage of this, so there's lots of opportunity to look at any current technology or any use of that. That sounds like a great suggestion.
Yeah, and as you'll see, City of Santa Fe uses it quite a bit. When they recondition streets, they go through with a machine that is a train of grinding and shooting the material up into the trucks and then putting it back down and then laying a hot mix over top of it, and it comes out with a very, very good structural section. And it's particularly good where you've just got so many cracks that you can't crack seal them all. You know, you can't chip seal them to death. And chip sealing is not always good for your cars either. You know, people.
Yeah, the industry typically refers to milling and filling, and we'll be definitely looking at milling.
Yeah.
These lots that need a complete resurfacing. We will take all those byproducts and recycle them. We are included in our evaluation study, and during the construction, we will be doing geotest core samples of all our lots, and we'll answer that question when we look at those tests.
Yeah, that looked pretty good. This firm has more than 500 people. That's a pretty big firm.
Yes, that's pretty much predominantly what they do is parking lots.
Well, I was impressed with their qualifications and their proposal, so I hope they come up with cost-effective solutions.
That's our goal.
Okay, other questions, comments? No?
No more.
Oh, okay, excuse me, I thought you had your hand up. We'll take a motion for approval of the parking lot upgrade and improvements.
Move to approve the parking lots.
Okay.
In honor of my nephew Dean, who from the time he started school here started complaining to me about the parking lots.
Second, moved and seconded. The minutes will note in honor of the former chair's nephew Dean.
We'll try, as Nick says, we'll try and find out which lot to name them after Dean, so.
Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you all.
All right, here's the one we've been waiting for. This is really the good one. Ms. McGarity will talk to us about the 2020 Learning Center District Board meeting schedule. And she has reduced this complicated subject to one page in your book. So for that, we thank her.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me this evening. Under the Learning Center District Act, we're required to get together 4 times a year. And so I'm proposing that the dates of our meetings occur in February, May, August, and October. Traditionally, this meeting has occurred during the work session or during the regular board meeting. And that's exactly all I have to tell you about that.
So moved.
Question.
Oh, a question.
Just
Let's-
a quick one. So don't we have to have a chair and a vice chair? Or just a chair? Have we just had a chair?
Just had a chair.
Okay.
And we also need to select a new chair, and that would be probably
At
the
the
first
meeting.
agenda item in February.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second? Here, seconds. She nodded her head. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Thank you. That
Thank
was
you.
extraordinary. Other staff, take note. All right.
Especially you, Nick.
Okay, we're back to Mr. Tejas.
Yeah, how do you let her off that easy?
Okay, we go to tab F, item 11. And these are information items. These are non-action items. We'll start with purchases over 100,000 and less than 150. There's none to report. So we'll go to the purchasing protocol for purchase orders. Mr. Tejas.
That's correct. Mr. Chair, board members, and President Rowley, I just wanted to bring this subject to the board. It's kind of something that has recently surfaced with our efforts to update College Policy 131, and that's really the board's financial oversight policy for the college. I wanted to see if, if this makes sense to you in terms of how I'd like to handle the purchasing protocol, purchasing manual, in terms of how we handle POs. College Policy 1-31 states that we bring all contracts over the amount of $200,000 to the governing board for approval. There's been a couple of instances where we have a purchase order and a purchase requisition, which is not an official legally binding contract. It's a purchasing order, and we've had this issue that the purchase order could be over $200,000 without a legally binding contract associated with it, where we could procure things using that method. And so I just wanted to have an open conversation with the board to see if you would have any concerns with us handling purchase orders in that way. This would, just for an example, the college policy really covers, 1-31 covers any kind of professional services contract that is over $200,000. That would have to come to the board. Any kind of construction contract has to come to the board if it's over $200,000. There's this issue with a piece of equipment, which, if we use an existing price agreement to buy a piece of equipment that is over $200,000, we normally would just simply issue a purchase requisition and a purchase order to do that. And so I didn't know if the board wants to essentially have us bring POs to the board for approval. And I'm happy to stand for any questions you might have in that regard, but it's kind of a unique situation with larger pieces of equipment where we have the situation where we don't create a legally binding contract, like an official contract that would be in place for that. So, and I intend to write this into a purchasing manual in order to do so, and also, if something did, like if a PO did come in at a higher amount, over $200,000, we would have a procedure where I myself would have to prove it along with the president's approval, and then we would report that to the board, at a later date. And I think that would safeguard it in terms of having that kind of checks and balances on that. If we're bringing POs to the board, there's also an issue where it could delay some of the projects, and that's another kind of concern. So
If it's not a contract and we issue a PO for a $200,000 truck to local dealership, and the dealership delivers the $200,000 truck, and we don't pay them, does he really think that that's not a contract?
I've talked to our legal counsel about it, and they've notified me that it's not it's not technically a legally binding contract. I think there's remedies in that when you issue a PO to somebody, but I think it depends on things more than just having issued a PO to a person.
Well, and I think 131, and correct me if I'm wrong, and yep, I see Laura still here, refers to capital improvements, it refers to renovations, and it refers to renovations over a certain size or changes of scope of work in facilities, generally different types of building projects. And I don't think does the 200,000 also relate to equipment purchases? I didn't remember that.
Not really. It's not written.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
And it's really, Mr. Chair, it's really clear that it's construction and,
Yeah.
Architectural
Services, professional services.
Professional service and that, but
Auditors, et cetera. So one thought I would have is that, that we look at language in there that, number one, I think we need a contract. Purchase orders are a tool of the devil, and we need a simple contract that would buy equipment, buy toilet paper or whatever it is you have to have. Now, some entities have purchase orders that say this is a contract, and in the back has a lot of legal language on it and so forth that claims to be a contract. I don't know how valid those are, but I would say, yes, we need to distinguish, as you're alluding to, between capital improvements and construction and architectural and professional services and day-to-day equipment and material purchases. But my suggestion would be that when we do those with a contract. Now, it doesn't need to be a big AIA contract like we've just looked at for the Palm building, but it could be a 1 or 2 or 3 page document that says, here's our basic agreement for this. Now, you can still use a purchase order if you want, just to specify what you're ordering. You're ordering 6 of these and 5 of those, or however you want to do it. But I certainly would be nervous about purchasing a lot of things that our legal counsel says is not a binding contract, because it works the other way too. If they don't deliver, we don't have a contract that requires them to deliver the object. And that may be critical. We may need something. So that'd be my thoughts. Other comments?
Yeah.
Yes, Linda.
Go ahead.
And well, and Jody's in this job too, so I'm sure she's got.
Sorry, Chairman, question, Nick. Help me understand what kind of equipment costs $200,000 or above.
And I would add, how many of those do we buy every year?
not many. This is just a kind of a unique situation that occurred, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, based on my experience in the last 7 years here, I think I can only recall 2 pieces of equipment that one is over 200,000, the other is over 400,000. And for example, one of those pieces of equipment would be a main switch panel and transformer.
So would those have maintenance contracts with them?
Those would have, the switch panel would have a 1-year warranty from labor and a 5-year warranty on parts, and we'd have a service contract from the vendor for probably at least 5 years.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Henry, but maybe like if we had the need to purchase a boiler, something like that, piece of equipment like that, it would kind of fall into this, I think.
That's correct. Most of those equipment are included in our investment grade audit in our performance contract. So that is inclusive of an entire renovation of our capital equipment, our fiscal plan equipment. So that is an $8 million project, and that project will carry its warranties. And we have a qualified Siemens through qualified vendor through an RFP process named Siemens, who won the project. They will be designing and installing that. So typically, we don't have a boiler that goes out. We plan for replacing the boiler before it goes out, because if we had a boiler that went out, we'd have to close the campus, and we don't want to do that. So we always have a capital equipment list, and we manage that list based on priority, and we replace that equipment before its useful life has ended. And in this case, we're going to replace all of our boilers during our investment grade audit. So we'll be good for another 20, 25 years. Thank you.
So, Mr. Chair, it's rare, but it's just something that came up, and it's, yeah, I just wanted to.
If you have a service contract with an electrical switchgear, that's a contract, and you're agreeing to buy a certain piece of switchgear, and they're agreeing to service it for some period of time. And I don't think you should do that with a purchase order. I think you should do that with a contract.
Yes, in the case that we would use a CES contract, normally that's done by just issuing the PO to them, so.
Well, and then
CES is what?
Cooperative Educational Services. It's a process that allows us to select a vendor that has been vetted through a state pricing agreement, and so we get the competitive pricing on that contract. Our thresholds through our higher education department are $500,000 and $700,000 for equipment and construction.
I think you may spend a lot of time dealing with this on 131, and it may not be really needed. I mean, if purchasing really wants to use purchase orders, that's, of course, their decision.
I mean, just for example, in speaking to our purchasing director, we process about 2,400 POs a year. That'd be 200 a month that you all would be reviewing and approving. That's quite an extensive.
I'm not recommending that we approve them. That's not my point.
Yeah.
My point is that
It would only be the ones over 200, though.
my point is that you do this with a binding agreement. And if we're putting out something on the street that our legal counsel said is not a binding agreement, you can still use a purchase order or whatever you want to call it, or a cover page or whatever, but you should have some boilerplate behind it that's a binding agreement that says, we agree to pay you $200,000 and you agree to provide us a truck or whatever you're providing. That's my concern. Good contracts make good neighbors. And but certainly we don't want to see 2,400 purchase orders.
And that's kind of what I wanted to get the feel for.
Typically, a purchase order for a piece of equipment is going to include a purchase agreement. And that agreement is going to identify what you're describing.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine.
That's what we
If
do.
that agreement is legally binding, then that's fine. The purchase order
Part of the PO.
should simply identify what it is you're buying or purchasing, and the conditions of that purchase should be
That's all laid out in the
be attached.
I think that, Mr. Chairman, board members, I think that we can try our best to develop, what would look like some additional terms and conditions on a PO and then bring those things to the governing board.
And if there's an item that you have questions about, put it on the agenda and just say, if it's only 2 items a year or 2 items in 5 years, say, we're not sure what to do with this. We recommend it, we need it. I'm sure the board would be supportive based on your recommendation.
Thank you.
Okay, that's pretty interesting. Let's talk about the report results of the sale of the System Improvement Revenue Bond Series 2020, and this ranks right up with some of the other stuff we've had on fixed asset disposal.
Mr. Chairman, I'm trying to figure out a way to get out of this seat here. So, Mr. Chair, board members, President Rowley, if you remember back to our July 2019 board meeting, the governing board did approve a resolution to source out bonds through the New Mexico Finance Authority. And ultimately, since July, we closed on those bonds in January. And as we have closed on those bonds, we have basically been authorized by the New Mexico Finance Authority for $5,595,000 in bonds issued through them, and they're available now. It's all been approved and authorized by the New Mexico Finance Authority, State Board of Finance, and other state agencies. And what is in front of you is just mandatory communication to the governing board that it's been complete. And these are some of the final terms of those bonds. It shows in here the schedule of what it looks like we'll be paying back on these bonds through the identified savings, energy savings from replacing out equipment. And this system revenue bond will be paid back entirely in the year 2039, so I'm sure you look forward to that.
I'll still be on the board then.
Yes, Board Member Siegel will be on the board.
Linda will still be here.
Yeah. And so some of the details are in this report for your information. And, you know, what's really good news to me is that the effective interest rate on these bonds is about 2.5%. And so I feel like that's actually a pretty good rate for borrowing. And, you know, we thank the New Mexico Finance Authority for helping us out with that. With that, I can stand for any questions on this. It's an information item only.
Chairman, just one question.
Jody?
Sorry, Nick. I'm gonna quit, but is this being paid back through energy savings? Is that what I heard you said?
That's
say?
correct.
So the energy savings that you save will actually be put back into paying.
That's the idea. And the state has been nudging institutions to go through a pretty formal process that they have. They did it at Clovis Community College, so Dr. Rowley's real familiar with it. The downside is it's a lengthy process. I mean, we've been working on this for 3 years, I think, beginning with a investment grade audit where we've been working with Siemens Corp to help us with that, analyzing our systems and energy usage and utility, water, all sorts of utility consumption, and using that information to figure out replacement. If we replace all of these different things, you know, you would see your energy bills go down, and therefore you can get capital for that and then basically pay it back with those savings.
So these bonds would go towards projects that were some kind of energy projects?
Yes,
Boiler replacements?
Mr. Chair and Board Member Pugh, you will see that hopefully the contract that's called a performance energy contract that spells out all of those things, the equipment and the replacement, hopefully in the February board meeting. I think we're very close to having it kind of finalized. And it would be a contract with Siemens Corporation to have them do all of these different replacement type things. But then there's also like support and monitoring that has to be done to make sure that you are actually receiving the utility savings. You have to monitor that closely.
So the college would have to do that monitoring and reporting?
Actually, yes, Member Pugh and members of the board. This is a very lengthy process. As Nick described, we've been involved in this for probably 3 years now. The state has code and laws that you have to follow to do this, and they have what they call EPSC, Energy Savings Performance Contract law. We use those guidelines, and we use their template and their third-party engineers. And those third-party engineers are helping us monitor not only the design, but they'll help us monitor the savings and collect the data to make sure we're getting those energy savings that are projected by our third party.
SFCC will be paying the third party.
That's correct.
But you'll still have an energy savings.
That's correct. And we pursued this in concert and partnership with Energy, Minerals, and Natural Resources Department of the state, and they're our partners, and they provide the third-party engineer who monitors this project with us and verifies and certifies the savings. This is all certified. And if those savings are not beneficial, Siemens will have to pay us. If we, well, we'll catch them. We get our utility bills every month. Yeah. Well, we get our utility bills every month, so we know what we're paying today, and we know what they're projecting we're going to be paying after the equipment's been replaced. So it's a pretty valid process, and again, with a third party, neither of us can fool each other.
Yeah, so one other thing, Mr. Chairman, we think we will be able to spend down these funds that we have in bond proceeds and within a year or maybe a little bit over a year. So that entire project should be complete after we get the contract in place.
Other questions? Just one quick question I had on our debt service reserve account, the $300,000 that we have to pony up in cash. What happens to that if it's not needed? Is that money that comes back to us, or how does that work?
Mr. Chairman and board members, that's something that I was a little bit not too happy with. That it turned out that way in the final closing of the bond. We were trying to get out of that, but ultimately NMFA required it. We don't know exactly why they would require it, because the college has a great bond rating, and so it was a bit of a surprise, but essentially they wouldn't have done the financing without it. What we've done is we've transferred that amount, the $300,000, to Bank of Albuquerque account, where it'll sit in escrow basically through the term of the payback on the debt, and so what NMFA tells me is they'll invest that money, and so it'll actually there'll be some earnings on it that will be available to, at the end of the term of the debt service payments, it'll be available to either pay back the debt or come back to the college, but it's the college's cash.
And so it sits there until 2039.
That's correct.
Wow.
Okay. But eventually we get it back.
Eventually, with interest.
With some interest, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we'd rather have the cash up front, as you.
Well, 20 years interest.
Mr. Chair, I tried my best with our bond bond advisors to work with NMFA and basically make an argument that we have a great bond rating. Why would we need this? But they just wouldn't go for it, and it would have tanked the whole 3 years of work. So it's our cash. It's not in the area that we want it, but it's still the college's cash.
Any other questions? Okay, this is an information item. I think we've finished up with, no, excuse me, we have the student satisfaction survey results, which.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Which, thank you.
Thank you.
Which Josh gave us a very good presentation at the work session.
No more.
Don't worry. I took notes when you said take notes, staff. So I'll keep it shorter than Megan's presentation. Okay, you could time me. So I'm happy to report that we have completed a student satisfaction survey. We conduct these surveys every 4 years. It's a large-scale campus-wide surveys. Just the highlights. So something to celebrate. SFCC once again scored higher than national community colleges in the level of satisfaction for students attending our institution. Very exciting. Another exciting highlights is that there's 4 items that we've improved compared to 2016, which is the last time we took the survey. 1 is the library resources and services. 2, how helpful our security staffs are. 3, tutoring services are readily available to our students. And 4, childcare facilities are available on campus. And with that, I stand for questions.
Very good.
Oh, nicely done.
Thank you, sir.
And the presentation of the work session was, of course, considerably more thorough with lots of very good questions about where we go next. And I think the board has a good feel for that, and I think Dr. Rowley does as well. All right, thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
Josh, and We have item 12, which is the first reading of Policy 1-11, Shared Governance, which we also discussed in the board meeting. This is just the first reading, and we talked about a few modifications that were suggested by staff, which the policy committee will take a look at when we meet. Are there any other comments about Policy 1-11? Okay, if not, again, this is not an action item at this time. We'll move on to item 13, board reports, discussion, other business. Board members, this is your chance.
Nothing.
Linda, nothing?
Nothing.
Jody? Oops, Pierre took off. George, any comments?
Nothing.
Nothing? Okay. I have nothing further. The next board meeting will be February 26th, right here. The legislative session will be over, and we'll ask Member Siegel to give us a final report, and Dr. Rowley as well. And we'll see where we are with Opportunity Scholarship. Motion to adjourn, please.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Moved and seconded. Seconded by Secretary, Vice Chair Gamble. All in favor, say aye.
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 You want
Opposed?
to use your gavel?
Oh, sure. Adjourn.